Jon Jones is willing to relinquish his heavyweight title and fight Alex Pereira for a BMF belt. Speaking to Sportsnet, Jon said it'd be cool to fight over the heavyweight championship, but I would also willingly give up the heavyweight championship. I walked away from the light heavyweight championship. I'd love to walk away from this one as well on top, on my own terms. Good head on your shoulders, making lots of money. I love the position that I'm in right now. Fighting Pereira for the BMF belt, that would be cool. We both have 2 belts in 2 weight classes, and the night we fought, we'd both be fighting for our 3rd belt, which would be the BMF. How cool would that be? The interim championship shouldn't have been there in the first place. The only reason why there was an interim championship fight was because I got hurt and they needed to keep the importance of that Madison Square Garden event. But Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall shouldn't have been fighting for an interim title in the first place. They should have just been the replacement fight, a main event fight. I think making it an interim title fight was premature. Now you have a bunch of confused people. When you have a dominant champion that's been around as long as I have, there was no reason to put an interim championship belt out there. That's the repercussion of Madison Square Garden last year. Dricus Du Plessis grapples multiple guys at once at his gym. Tom Aspinall has high praise for Michael Chandler. However, he thinks Chandler would be frustrating to coach. Speaking to TNT Sports, Aspinall said, "I think Mike Chandler, especially, he's got to be one of the most frustrating people to coach ever, because tactics when he fight are just completely out the window, and he just goes for it. He's just basically having a street fight with a pair of gloves on. It's fantastic to watch. He fights with pure aggression and athleticism, really. Obviously, he's very technical, but he chooses to not use that in a way. But for me, sometimes I love technique. I love the finesse of fighting. But sometimes, just like anybody else, I just like to watch a good scrap. So this guy's entertainment every time. Put these 2 guys in. You close the octagon doors, you ring the bell, and it's just going to be absolute chaos. So I'm looking forward to being cage side for that one." Brendan Schaub agrees with Jon Jones and doesn't think Tom Aspinall deserves to call the shots and fight him. Brendan says Tom Aspinall's resume doesn't compare to Jon's. He also says despite Jon testing positive for PEDs, he's still the GOAT because Brendan says everybody was on them back then.
Prize fighting at its finest. He wants the biggest prize and the easiest task. That's what he's doing. Figure it out. He's also earned that right. He is, bar none, the greatest combat fighter of all time out of any division. Hands down. Oh, but it's PD. Shut up. They were all on it back when he tested hot. All of them. He's the greatest of all time. He's earned this right to do what he wants to do. And I always find it so conflicting when people are like, oh, fighters' rights, fighters' pays, fighters need to stick up for themselves. And then you got a career GOAT in Jon Jones who's beat the who's who. You look at his resume compared to anybody else. This ain't even a conversation. Nobody has earned the right more to call their shots. He's at the point of his life where, yeah, he can call his shots. He's earned that. And y'all want to complain. He needs to fight Tom Aspinall. For what? I love Tom Aspinall. Do I think Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight on the planet? I do. Do I think he can beat Jon Jones and Stipe? Yes, probably both in the same night. That doesn't matter in this situation. You guys are getting confused. Look at Tom Aspinall's resume. As of right now, who has he beat in order to call his shot against Jon Jones?
Jon Jones says he actually felt disappointed after he beat Ciryl Gane because he beat him so fast. Speaking to ESPN, Jon said beating Ciryl Gane was an amazing memory and experience. I remember one of the first major feelings I had was a little bit of disappointment. I remember sitting on the top of the cage and celebrating my victory, taking a deep breath and thinking, man, that was fast. That was fast. It was 3 years leading up to that. A lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of teamwork. And for it to be over in 2 minutes and 4 seconds, I kind of felt robbed in a way. The next emotion that I felt was just gratefulness that I didn't get hurt and that I did my job, what I came to do, and did it flawlessly. So I had mixed emotions, bittersweet. Michael Bisping thinks we may see Michael Chandler fight more technically against Charles Oliveira at UFC 309 due to how much he has on the line. Anthony Smith disagrees and says there is no chance of that happening.
Going up against Charles Oliveira, the first fight was phenomenal. Back and forth action. You know, they both had a lot of success. Charles is great. Chandler's very entertaining and takes a lot of risks. That's why we love him. But the man's got to get a win. And I feel like we might see him come into this one and fight a little bit smarter, because he's got to get a win. Because he's got to make up for the time away. You don't think so?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
You don't think there's a world where he's like, I've just got to get this. I'm just going to go in, use the boxing, pick him up, slam him. You're right.
No, I think, okay, I'm with you on part of it. I think he'll think he's going to do that. I used to think that he was trying to be exciting, and he's not. It's just who he is in here, and he can't help it. Yeah. As he tried, he would kind of go and pull back and go and pull back, and you can tell he just says, I gotta go. He can't help it. He can't change it.
Diego Lopes says he's down for a point-and-brawl invitation from Ilia Topuria. Diego also discusses Ilia's win over Max Holloway and says it hurt to watch Max get KO'd. Speaking to MMA Junkie, Diego said, definitely. I'm telling you, I respect everyone, but I'm not afraid of anyone. If there's anything I don't have, it's fear. I think I've shown that in all my fights. I've shown that I'm not afraid of anyone. As many times as he wants to point to the ground, I will plant my feet in the middle of the cage and throw down. It's that easy. On Ilia knocking out Max, Diego continued, I think everyone felt it. As a fan, removing myself as a fighter. Like a fan, I think it hurt all of us to see Max Holloway in that situation. Imagine, I think all MMA fans have now been watching Holloway for years, and we've never seen him in a situation like this. We've never imagined this would happen, and when it did, it was a big surprise. But credit to Topuria, he did a great job. He did what he said he was going to do. He kept his promise. Jon Anik and Ray Longo react to Stipe Miocic being a massive underdog going into the fight against Jon Jones. They both believe that people are underestimating Stipe.
Now, supplementation is on point. If you're eating the right diet, it all adds up. And whoever, when you get to a certain point, those are things that could really make a difference in a fight.
I'm in love with your accent. Earlier today, you were talking about Stipe, Ray, and you were like, he's a fireman, just everything you say is just music to my ears. I'm looking up the live betting line right now on Stipe Miocic and Jon Jones on DraftKings Sportsbook, because Stipe is up to plus 525 and he opened plus 240. And this is but one lens through which to look at this fight, right? But Jon Jones against Ciryl Gane closed minus 143. And right now he's like minus 700 against the most accomplished on paper heavyweight champion of all time. Stipe 4 times defended this belt across 2 reigns. I know he's 42, but I remember one time on a hot mic saying Glover Teixeira breaks through at 42, right? I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I just feel like I'm on an island sometimes when I say this fight seems more competitive than the betting line would indicate. And every time I go into the sportsbook, Kemflo, the price gets bigger. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's good. But I think Glover's a great example because he's another grinder and old-timer that really did well. I could see Stipe doing that too, man. I'm betting him. I'm going to bet him. Not that I bet, but if I did bet him.
Jon Jones reacts to his custom shorts design for UFC 309.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. I'm so excited about these. Got the lion as my favorite Bible verse. It's the cross, the last name. Let's go.
What is your favorite Bible verse?
Huh?
What is your favorite Bible verse?
Oh, Philippians 4:13. It's just my mom used to recite it to me all the time. My late mother. I could do all things through Christ who gives me strength, and I believe it sincerely in my heart. I really believe with God all things are possible. This is my superpower. My relationship, my faith, and God has brought me through so many battles, personal battles, and not only in the octagon but in life. He has sustained me and given me strength in some really hard times. And so I can't be convinced that God isn't real, just because of the relationship that I have and the effect that he has had in my life. And so Philippians 4:13, I live by it. I have it tattooed on my chest, and I try to stand behind it every time I do anything. And I'm super grateful to have these. I'm probably gonna wear them to sleep tonight, not gonna lie.
Michael Chandler says he feels reinvented ahead of his rematch against Charles Oliveira. He says Chandler 1.0 is out for blood, and Chandler 2.0 is out for the title.
It's awesome. New York City is the mecca of combat sports. And Madison Square Garden, the world's most iconic arena, fighting within feet of some of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. And it's always awesome. It's always surreal. And I can't wait to go out there and compete and get my hand raised at Madison Square Garden. For me, it's been all about growth and patience. Obviously with the way the Conor McGregor Ultimate Fighter 31 thing happened, I like to say it happened for me and not to me. There was definitely moments where it was tough, but overall, as I sit here today, I look back on it and realize it was such a huge blessing for me. I needed a little bit of time off physically, mentally, spiritually, spent a ton of time with my family, a ton of time working on things outside of the octagon, passions outside of the octagon, and now I sit here happy, healthy, and hard to kill. And I think it's because I was able to take those 2 years off. People love a comeback story. I mean, even Charles Oliveira, I've given him his props. I've said Charles in the past was a very unreliable guy, right? Missing weight, losing fights he shouldn't have lost to, kind of up and down with his performances, and then he puts it all together, becomes champion, beats me, beats Poirier, beats Gaethje. I mean, the dude's an absolute stud, and he was just a young, broke kid from the favelas of Brazil. That's why people love the UFC. That's why people love this sport. Chandler 1.0 was out for blood. Chandler 2.0 is out for the title. And I have put things together differently than I ever have been, not just in this last training camp, but the camp before that when I was preparing for Conor, and even before that, for a full year, doing things differently, thinking differently, visualizing differently. You're going to see a completely different version of myself stepping inside the octagon on Saturday, and I believe it's the recipe to win. This fight's going to be vintage Michael Chandler. I'm going to put pressure on him. I'm going to have a foot on the gas the entire time, putting pressure on him, making him second guess himself, putting him into the fire. I think I wear him down and I knock him out clean, cold.
Ahead of his fight against Paul Craig this weekend at UFC 309, Bo Nickal says he plans to catch up quick to Khamzat Chimaev. He also gives his thoughts on Khamzat's recent victory over Robert Whittaker. On the Ariel Helwani show, Bo said, "I think it was super impressive. To be honest, it's funny, because a lot of people expected that it would be a tough fight for him. And you ask around all the people that I talked to, I kind of thought that he would do that to Whittaker. It's one thing to think that, or to kind of see that happening, but he actually did, which is super impressive. Whittaker's not an easy fight for anybody, and he made it look easy. So I was really impressed with his last performance, and it seemed like he kind of took a different mentality into the fight as well, which was cool to see. That's a fight that I'm looking forward to. I think obviously he's quite a bit ahead of me right now, but he'll be fighting for the belt soon, and then I'll catch up quick." On his upcoming fight against Paul Craig, Bo continued, "I feel like the Rocket's been strapped to me for a while, but if you look at anybody else's career, they're fighting over a decade before they're in that position, and I think I'll be there in probably around, I'm basically there. I win 1 or 2 more fights and I'm fighting a ranked guy, and then I'm fighting a top 5, and then I'm fighting for the belt. If I have 6 fights right now, I'm already past the halfway point if that's the trajectory. I've kind of reframed my mindset towards this, because coming into MMA I had these goals of I want to be a UFC world champion. I want to be the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. Lately, I've reframed that to just I want to continue to get better and improve and see where I can go and not really put a limit on it, because even though to most people, UFC champion, pound for pound #1 fighter in the world seems like an unattainable goal, it's still putting a cap on it. So my focus has been now just improvement, and I think that I'm going to continue to do that until my career is over. And even past that, I'm going to continue being a martial artist and learning and getting better at every single thing." Sean Strickland took some shots at Jon Jones. On X, Sean wrote, "It's so odd to me how famous people get the free pass. Picture if I said, 'Hello, you want to meet my friend Bob, but does steroids, Bob beats up women in front of kids, Bob hit a pregnant woman and drove away,' you'd say, 'F Bob.' Society is very strange." This user replied saying, "Sounds like you're calling out Jon Jones. He smoke you." Sean said, "Luckily, I don't think you can own a gun with a DV charge." This user replied with a photo of Jon. Sean wrote, "Bob, is that you?" And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. The first one says, "Something tells me if Aspinall called Jon Jones a B, he would find it in his Christian heart to forgive Tom immediately." The second one's from MMA for Life. It says, "Bisping is right. If Jones doesn't fight Tom after this, he should be stripped. don't be a duck. And the final one says it would be the funniest thing if Stipe finished Jon Jones with 12-6 elbows. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.